Have you ever seen a woman who chooses to live alone and asked yourself, why? No boyfriend, no husband, not even a sign that she's searching for one. People around her will say it's loneliness. Some will whisper she ran out of options. Others will sneer that she must have been broken before. But the truth is harder to swallow, because sometimes choosing to live alone isn't a loss at all. It's a form of power. You can see this clearly if you look back at your own life. How many times have you been with someone and still felt colder, emptier, more drained than when you were by yourself? How many times have you compromised just to keep a relationship, only to find yourself hollowing out inside? It is the moment you dare to step away, to refuse to fill the emptiness with half-hearted presence, that a different journey begins. And this is precisely what makes people uneasy, because it shatters the definition they've been trained to accept about love, attachment, and what a proper life should look like. But here, we won't sugarcoat it, and we won't comfort you with promises that everything will be fine. Instead, this video will open a different lens. Why society trembles in front of a woman who does not need to cling. Why the choice to live alone exposes the collective shadow. And most importantly, how you can stop seeing being alone as a failure and start seeing it as the way to reclaim yourself. From the time you were little, you've heard the same refrains repeated over and over. A grown woman needs a partner. No one wants to be alone. A woman can only be happy if she has a family. Harmless as they may sound, these words quietly build into an invisible wall. A wall that convinces you your worth is tied to having someone beside you. So when a woman steps outside that loop and chooses to live alone, she isn't just rejecting personal expectations. She's confronting an entire culture that has been programmed across generations. You can see this play out in daily life. At family gatherings, the default question becomes, "So, when are you getting married?" At restaurants, sympathetic looks follow you when you eat alone. When you move into your own place, people's puzzled stares carry the same message. You are not enough unless you belong to someone. It is this repetition that keeps many women from being honest about what they really want. They stay in stale relationships just to avoid questions. They cling to half-hearted connections just to dodge the word lonely. But here's the problem. The loop never truly satisfies. It's like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. The more you cling to forced attachments, the more you lose yourself. And the moment you stop, the moment you say, enough, society reacts because you've just broken a collective habit. Others will judge you, not because you're wrong, but because your choice forces them to see truths they themselves are avoiding. In reality, many women who live alone do not do so because they were unwanted, but because they refuse to keep paying the price. They understand that staying in a relationship just to satisfy external approval is far too costly. And that choice becomes an uncomfortable mirror for everyone else. If she can do it, why can't I? What you see clearly here is this. Society always finds ways to make you doubt yourself, especially when you step away from the crowd. But inside that doubt lies an important discovery, that many of the needs you thought were yours are nothing more than echoes from the outside. And when you dare to step out, even just once, you realize something surprising. The loneliness you feared is far less terrifying than losing yourself in the endless gaze of others. There's a truth few people dare to admit. Society isn't uncomfortable with women being happy. It's uncomfortable for women to be happy without a man beside them. Because that single fact disrupts every story passed down through generations. We were raised to believe that a woman is only complete when she carries the title someone's wife or someone's partner. If she doesn't belong to a man, she is labeled incomplete, cold, picky, or even broken. These false beliefs become invisible pressures. Many assume women who live alone do so because they're not attractive enough, not chosen. But the reality is most of these women have been chosen before. They have loved. Some have even walked into marriage. They left not because they lacked options, but because they refused to make the wrong choice just to satisfy the crowd. They understood that the wrong relationship steals more peace than any disapproving glance ever could. Others believe living alone is a mark of failure, a sign that no one wants you. But the truth is the opposite. It's a sign that you're strong enough not to cling to what doesn't nourish you. Women who dare to be alone are often the ones who learned how to stand again after being shattered, who faced loneliness head-on and discovered a new kind of strength, the strength of freedom. And then comes another cultural whisper, that single women are selfish, too focused on themselves. But think carefully. What is real selfishness? Is it staying imprisoned in dead relationships just to keep everyone else comfortable? Or is it living in alignment with your true needs without harming anyone? Sometimes selfish is nothing more than the label others give you when you stop meeting their expectations. These false beliefs don't just harm women. They create a loop where men, too, don't know how to approach a free woman. When they can't control her in the ways they're used to, they often retreat or attack. And in this way, the single woman becomes a mirror, reflecting the fears and insecurities of both genders. What you need to see here is this. Women who live alone are not a story of lack. They are a story of choice, a story of breaking away from the outdated beliefs that chain generations before them. And once you understand this, you'll never look at them with pity again, but with respect. Because in that choice lies more courage than most people can even imagine. There's a bitter truth. Most of the pressure women face when living alone doesn't actually come from the outside. It comes from within. Society only plants the seed, but it's the unconscious shadow that waters it. Even the most independent woman can still hear a faint echo in her mind. Is something wrong with me? Because, since childhood, she's been told over and over that a woman's value lies in being chosen, in being kept. When that belief grows deep enough, even if she chooses differently, there's still a hidden battle inside. This is the behavioral loop. Being judged, doubting yourself, trying to prove your worth, burning out, and then falling exactly where society expected you to fall. Many women believe they are free, but in reality, they've only traded one chain for another. Instead of pleasing a man in a relationship, they torture themselves with society's unspoken standards. Carl Jung once said that what we deny returns as fate. That means if a woman denies her fear of loneliness, that fear will silently control her every move, pushing her either into relationships she shouldn't enter, or into walls so high that no one can reach her. And in this way, the unconscious becomes the director, while the conscious self is only a minor actor. The real shift has to happen here. Living alone isn't about rejecting love, nor is it about proving you're stronger than anyone else. It's simply about refusing to let fear dictate your choices. Once you grasp this, you begin to understand what freedom actually is. Freedom is not about whether you have a relationship or not. Freedom is about choosing without being steered by fear or judgment. And here's the pivot point in this video. Ask yourself, how many times have you made a decision not because you truly wanted to, but because you were afraid of what others might think? How many times have you stayed silent, not because you were calm, but because you feared being labeled as too difficult or too independent? If you're honest with yourself, you'll see this loop everywhere. It's not only in relationships. It shows up in work, in family, in how you define happiness itself. And here's the hard truth. As long as this unconscious loop keeps running, you are not truly living your own life. You're living the version society expects of you. And that is the deepest loneliness of all. Not when you're physically alone, but when you're surrounded by people and can no longer find yourself anywhere inside. This is the midpoint of the journey. If you're still here, it means some part of you is already reaching for a way out of the loop. And from this point forward, the story is no longer just about the woman who lives alone. It becomes a larger, sharper question. Are you willing to choose yourself, even when the entire world fails to understand? Imagine a small apartment high above the city. Inside, there are no arguments, no waiting for someone to come home late, no guessing at another person's moods. Just a simple dining table, a few half-read books, and the warm glow of a single lamp, enough for one person. To many, this image suggests loneliness. But for some women, it is liberation. Because that apartment isn't an empty void. It's a space to breathe. It's like a room with a lock on the inside. A place where she decides who is allowed to enter. The metaphor here is the inner house. Every person has one. But women are often taught from childhood that this house doesn't belong to them, but to whoever comes knocking, whoever chooses them. So many let others wander in and out, leaving marks, making a mess, even breaking things down. Only when they are brave enough to live alone do they begin to clean that house, to rearrange each corner, to shut unsafe doors, and to open the windows only when it feels truly safe. This is not a metaphor about hiding. It's a metaphor about reclaiming ownership. When a woman chooses to live alone, she is rebuilding her inner house according to her own design. She might leave the walls white or paint them in bright colors. She might fill the rooms with spacious furniture or keep everything minimal. What matters most is this. She knows she lives there, no longer a guest in a house arranged by someone else. And this carries more power than we often realize. Because society is accustomed to seeing women as those who open their doors, rarely as those who know how to lock them and choose carefully. That image unsettles people. It breaks the familiar mold. Yet only by locking the door and resetting the house can she truly invite someone in with calmness, instead of with fear of being abandoned. Do you see yourself in this? Have you ever felt that your inner house grew too noisy with other people's voices, so loud you could no longer hear your own? If so, you understand why the choice to live alone is not a denial of love, but an act of reconstruction. Because when the house is strong enough, anyone who steps in is no longer an intruder, but a guest who has been invited. Take a moment to hold a mirror up to your own life. How many times have you entered a relationship not because you truly wanted to, but because you feared the emptiness of walking alone? How many times have you stayed, not out of love, but out of fear of being labeled undesirable, broken, or left behind? Maybe you forced a laugh at parties, clung to someone whose presence no longer stirred your heart, just to avoid the dreaded question, so, when are you getting married? If you're honest, you'll see a bitter truth. You weren't living for yourself, you were living to satisfy other people's gaze. And the cost of that is not small. It steals the quiet peace of your nights when you're busy reading someone else's moods instead of listening to your own. It robs you of confidence when you trade away your boundaries to preserve a relationship already cracked. Worse, it robs you of the chance to realize what you truly deserve, because you rush to fill the empty chair with whoever happens to sit down. If you keep living like this, the cycle never ends. You'll move from one relationship to the next, dragging the same fear with you. Am I good enough this time? Will they stay? That's when you turn yourself into a prisoner of expectation. And the painful truth is that no one outside of you can ever make you feel whole if you've never given that gift to yourself first. On the other hand, If you dare to stop, if you dare to accept silence instead of plugging it with a familiar face, something begins to shift. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, even unsettling. But slowly, you'll notice small things again. A morning with no rush, an evening with no pretending. From there, you begin to rebuild respect for yourself. So the real question is, when you look in the mirror, do you want to see someone living a life for others? Or someone slowly taking the wheel back into their own hands? That answer won't come from anyone else. Only you know where you want to stand 5 years from now, still waiting for a look of approval, or standing tall in the undeniable weight of your own worth. For a long time, maybe you've let others define you. They've called you the woman who's alone, too difficult, unwanted. And you either stayed silent or tried to prove them wrong by throwing yourself into a relationship just to have one. But if you look closely, you'll realize something important. Those labels never described you. They only revealed other people's insecurities. When society isn't used to seeing a woman who doesn't need a man to validate her worth, it rushes to invent a story to cover its own discomfort. And unknowingly, you may have accepted living inside that story. But it's time to rewrite the language. Alone does not mean a failure. It can mean self-chosen. Not needing a man does not mean against men. It can mean not needing external validation. When perception changes, language changes, and your life shifts with it. The moment you stop introducing yourself with hidden apologies like, "I don't have anyone yet," or "I haven't settled down," and instead replace them with grounded truths like, "I'm focusing on what brings me peace," you'll feel the center of power move. You're no longer the accused on trial before society. You become the judge of your own life. Think about it. How many times have you nervously dodged the question, "So when are you getting married?" The usual response is a forced smile, a quick joke to smooth over the discomfort. But next time you could simply say, "I haven't found a reason to rush." Direct, unapologetic. When the language shifts, the silence in the room shifts too. You're no longer avoiding, you're establishing a boundary. The truth is, many will still feel uneasy because they don't know how to handle a woman who isn't controlled by social pressure. But that's the sign you've stepped out of the passive role. You don't need their approval, you need your own. And once you permit yourself to stand at the center of your own life, the judgmental stares begin to lose their power. Carl Jung once said, "Darkness is only dangerous when we refuse to name it." And in this case, the darkness is the outdated definitions society hangs on women's shoulders. When you name them, when you dare to change the way you speak, you turn what once confined you into the foundation of your freedom. It's no longer alone, it's chosen. No longer undesirable, it's non-compromising. No longer lacking, it's complete within myself. And from the moment you transform your language, even the smallest things, an answer, a way of introducing yourself, begin to ripple outward. You don't just free yourself from the cycle of judgment, you open a path for others, other women who are silently enduring the same weight, to gain a language of their own to protect themselves. This is no longer just a personal story, it is a collective shift. And it begins with you, with the words you choose to describe yourself. So the question now is, where can you begin to live fully without feeling the need to prove yourself? The truth is, it doesn't take anything complicated. Just 3 small but consistent actions. First, learn to answer curious questions with calmness. When someone asks, "Why don't you have a partner yet?" instead of dodging or laughing it off, you can simply say, "Because right now I'm choosing to prioritize other things." No long explanations, no defensive tone. A short, steady answer is enough to show you're the one in control of your choices. Second, build a life rich with intrinsic value. Sign up for that class you've been putting off, start a habit of physical training, or dedicate time to small projects that bring you joy. When your life is already full, you don't need a relationship to fill the gaps, and that fullness itself becomes your freedom. Third, establish a new language in your relationships. If in the past you used to lower your voice or avoid talking about being single, now practice saying firmly, "I'm comfortable with my choice right now." Repeating this simple statement doesn't just shift how others see you, it reshapes how you see yourself. This isn't a path of rebellion, it's a path of choice. And every small step you take today becomes a brick laid for the foundation of tomorrow's freedom. If you don't dare to stand firm in your own choices, life will quickly write the script for you. That script might look like a relationship entered just to avoid questions, a marriage arranged to please your parents, or years stretched out under the quiet weight of "I chose wrong." The real cost isn't loneliness. It's the loss of yourself when you're forced to play a role you never wanted. And once you get used to living for others, you eventually forget what it is you truly want. On the other hand, when you dare to remain in a choice that isn't yet approved by the majority, you discover a rare quality: integrity. That's when you can look into the mirror and see someone who no longer has to pretend. You walk into your home and feel it as a space that truly belongs to you. You step outside and stop worrying about the glances of others, because you know this road was chosen by you, not handed down by anyone else. Carl Jung once said, "What you deny will return to you as fate." If you deny your true desires just to fit into society's mold, fate will remind you through the emptiness that cannot be filled. But if you dare to face them, fate will also return to you a different kind of power, the kind of power that many spend their entire lives quietly envying. What matters is this: living alone doesn't mean rejecting love. It simply means rejecting the temporary, the half-hearted, the convenient. You're not looking to patch the gaps. You're waiting for a real connection. And if that hasn't arrived yet, you're still whole. In truth, the deepest allure comes from the one who doesn't need to be alluring at all. The price of refusing to change is the slow erosion of yourself. The quality you gain when you do change is the return of ownership over your life. And that is what real freedom looks like. Let's admit something. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to force yourself into dating just to post couple photos. You don't need to accept a relationship just to avoid the endless questions about when you'll marry. The truth is, when you come home at night, only you know whether you feel peace inside or not. And that peace doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from living in rhythm with yourself. Of course, there will still be curious stares, whispers, and even dismissive shrugs. But remember this: outsiders only see the picture they want to believe in. You're the one actually living it. And if you let others take the wheel of your life, you'll always remain a spectator in your own story. This week, you don't need to do anything dramatic. Just ask yourself one question: if I didn't have to satisfy anyone else, how would I truly want to live? The answer might not appear right away, but the moment you dare to ask it, you've already begun walking your own path. And who knows, maybe in the next video, you'll discover another truth waiting quietly to be named.